I don't know who that guy is, but y'all gonna be stuck with me for the rest of the night, for a little while. Thank you for being here. I know it's hot, and I know the traffic's bad this time of year, time of day and everything, but thank you. First of all, let me do some thanks. I need to thank Dee, you just heard, and Laura and Dina, all for putting this together. They're very powerful with the Pavillon Alumni Association. This idea and this whole thing is a culmination of a lot of work, and I want to thank them for all they do. Now, I've got a lot to say tonight, but before we do, I want to set a stage. I want to make sure that, and this is specific to my brothers and sisters in recovery. I want you to hear what I'm going to say, and because I'm going to set the stage, I'm going to tell you something about yourself that you don't know. So listen to me. You need to realize that this thing you've involved yourself in is a whole heck of a lot bigger than you think it is. Now, we can do that by starting with a closer look at the Bible and social history. If you study the literature and dig deep enough, you know what you'll find? That when God picks people to do his work, he calls on some very average guys. Everyday people very much like you and I. But if you take a more reflective peek into their personal history, you may realize that some of them were less than average, what society might consider a criminal, maybe even labeled as a bum. Some of these were very well educated, some were illiterate. Some acted with some very strange behaviors and were considered bizarre, if not outright insane. A lot of them were unknowns and they led peaceful, innocent lives, but there were a few that were so notorious and so infamous that they were feared and in a lot of ways outcast by society. Let's look first at the Bible. Noah was a drunk. Moses was a slave. Jonah ran from God. Samson and David were adulterers, and Elijah was suicidal. Mary was an illiterate village girl, not much more than a child. Matthew was a despised tax collector, and Andrew was a simple fisherman. Peter lied and turned his back on Jesus. And most of the others, disciples, fell asleep literally while Jesus prayed for his life. The Samaritan woman was divorced. Paul was a thief, and he tormented every Christian he could find, and poor Lazarus was dead. Yet they were all chosen by God. Now, in more modern times, we can find even more examples of, let's just say, God's odd selection process. Martin Luther King was a small-town preacher from a small Baptist church in a small Georgia town. All he did was move an entire nation into awareness and equality. John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, which today is the most recognized and recorded song in the world and has touched the hearts and souls of millions worldwide, was a slave trader. Now think about that. The man who wrote Amazing Grace bought and sold human beings. Rosa Parks was a tiny, quiet, ordinary woman who went shopping one day and ended up changing the conscience of an entire nation from the front seat of a city bus. Bill Wilson, who struggled with his faith and his alcoholism most of his life and is not known to have ever owned a Bible, is credited with starting a movement that has saved the lives and souls of countless alcoholics and addicts worldwide. All of these, and many, many more that very few have ever heard of, or have made huge impacts on others, and in many ways have made this world so much better for us all. And now, why do you suppose were these very common people handpicked by God to perform such incredible wonders? Why would God choose such simple and often flawed men and women to do the seemingly undoable? Because he knew that they could. You see, God works his miracles through common and anonymous people. And when he wants something done, he picks who he knows can do it. Now, sometimes this call is a whisper, it's like in a dream, and it lifts us to heights we didn't know existed. Other times the call is a hammer blow to the head. It buckles us in so much pain that we've got to do something about it. Recovery from addictions is not for the faint of heart. This is big boy, big girl stuff. It takes honesty, hope, discipline, faith, and courage to make the changes that are required for quality recovery. This program is crafted in such a way that it mandates that you rise to its heights. It is not reducing itself to your level, nor do you want it to. Because at your lowest point, you thought it would be impossible to go all day without your drink or drug. Now you find yourself chosen to do all day what you once considered inconceivable for even an hour. And why? Because even though you may have thought that recovery was unreachable, far from anything you could hold on to, higher than any mountain you could climb, God didn't think so. He doesn't throw his mercy around blindly or carelessly. It is offered to those who can use it. He graces those who will honor that blessing and make it their way of life. And listen to me, and today, that is you. Basically, we're all just very unremarkable people. We live modest, quiet lives, trying to handle life as best we can. We're everywhere, and we usually keep a low profile. We are average at best. We don't ever reflect on doing anything great, much less experience in the life of greatness. But when something great needs to be done, some very ordinary people hear that call, they choose to rise, and they do extraordinary things, and then everybody sees them. Recovery from addictions is such an action of remarkable achievement that demands so much phenomenal courage and sacrifice, many are afraid to even consider it, much less attempt it. This call to conquer the evil nature of this disease is heard by only those who are honest, open, willing, and yes, often desperate enough to hear God's voice, feel His grace, do His bidding, follow His will, and today, that is you. Who does God pick? I'll tell you who He chooses. He selects ordinary people to carry out His extraordinary commands. He calls on the broken to rise so they can reach down and lift those who have fallen. He asks many to hurt so that others don't have to. He puts scores of wandering travelers on rocky, thorny, and treacherous paths so they can clear the way for others to walk. He calls on only those men and women that He knows have the courage to seek their dragons, slay them, and discover the true best selves along the way. He selects the average person that He knows has the drive and desire to be way above average. Husbands and fathers, wives and mothers, neighbors and citizens. He doesn't pick the rich and famous, the mighty or the strong. He picks those who are in pain, who are dying inside, and will do anything to recover their honor, their dignity, their integrity, and their pride. And He knows that He has to pick the one who despises the evil of the dark so much that their soul will cry out for the healing power of the light and will crawl through heaven and hell to get there and then carry the message to others. And today, that is you. You have been called. Are you going to reject God's grace? Are you going to turn your back on your miracle? Are you going to tell God that He picked the wrong guy? What I want to say is for you to know that this journey of recovery is not just a casual, random time and place in your life, something that you just happen to be going through. You're thinking too small and you're cheating yourself if you think that way. No, you are on a mission, answering a call. One that is divinely inspired, planned, and directed. And today you are neck deep, right smack dab in the middle of that plan. You are no longer talking to God, He's talking to you. So you need to listen, you need to pay attention, and do not doubt me, because I'm not one. Tonight is special. This is very special for me. This college, this campus, this chapel, all have distinct places in my life. When I was a cadet here, Sunday morning chapel was mandatory, and they had to drag me in here, kicking and screaming. And once the preaching started, I fell asleep. And now, contrary to all odds and any manner of rational thinking, I stand before you behind this sacred pulpit, scared half to death, wondering how in the world I ended up here, and I have no doubt many of you are wondering the same thing. I think I have an answer. Hang with me. There are cherished people here, treasures in my life. And the answer to how I did find myself here lies in a great part with you. I have classmates and teammates here, brothers as close to me as real family, and bonded in a way that cannot be torn apart. They taught me the true nature and value of teamwork, what it takes to be a teammate, to be part of a team, working together for a common goal. They are friends here, so embedded in my heart and soul that I also consider them family. From them I learned in the purest and strongest essence of the word what friendship really is. What it means to be a friend, and again, how to be one. There are some here from my profession, mentors and colleagues that played such a huge part in my growth as a care provider. Your patience and trust in my work inspired me to be more like you, and it was humbling to see how far removed I was from that. Your example made me work harder. The point I'm trying to make here, and the answer to how I and any of us got here, is that we stand and we ride on the shoulders of giants. Every one of us is here because we were lifted, carried, nurtured, taught, and guided by others. We have all drank the water from wells we did not dig. All of us have sat in the shade of trees we did not plant. Knowing that, know this. Our call, our mission, our cause is to dig more wells, plant more trees, because there are those coming behind us. They will need the experience, strength, and hope so freely given to us, and now we extend it to them as they step out into the journey of their future. That is our primary purpose, and we must never forget that. The 12-step philosophy is presented through the literature of AA is one that moves the alcoholic and addict into growth and healing, and in doing so serves as a role model, an example that inspires and energizes others. For those veterans in recovery here tonight, I hope what I say augments your already and continuing glorious victory. For the newcomer to this program, I pray that what I say intrigues you enough to be more introspective, to be more curious, more open to the changes that have to be made to know the true world of quality recovery. For the rest of you here, I haven't forgotten you. The philosophy of the 12 steps is actually a life skills program. It's a fundamental basic primer on how to live life on life's terms. I don't know, perhaps some of you could use a little brushing up. I don't know. If you do, listen up, because I'm going to tell you. And as for me, I'm just working my program. I'm just carrying the message, and I'm honored to do so. And like I said, this is one messenger that is very nervous, so I will use notes. Forgive me, there's a lot to cover. I pray that the Cyrils Honor Code will give me a pass for using cheat sheets, because I'm getting ready to cheat. The topic of this talk is a wider look at the recovery mindset. The idea of a productive recovery mindset and what it involves has intrigued me for years. Now, I should start by defining some words. There is often a grievous distortion of the terms recovery and sobriety and exactly where they put a person. To many, they are considered interchangeable, synonymous. This is a gross misconception of the two models and can send people down the wrong path, giving them a false sense of accomplishment. Now, not knowing any better, they think they've done something, but actually they pulled up far short of the goal. Now, pay attention. Recovery and sobriety are not the same thing. Sobriety is a medical condition. The word represents the physical and neurological state of being. It just means that I don't have toxic neuroendocrine chemicals in my brain, that I'm not under the influence of the drug, that I'm clean. This, of course, must be where you start, but it's not the end all. It's not even close. It's good, but it don't make you that big a deal. A donkey can get sober. We've all gotten sober. Some of us donkeys have done it dozens of times. But to stay sober, there must be a move towards recovery, and that's a very big deal. Recovery means exactly what it says it is. If I lose something and I get it back, I have recovered it. And for me, that's the purpose of the whole thing. Now, granted, there might be some motives, other motives for this, to seek this condition called recovery. You may want to regain your health, keep your job, mend shattered relationships, maybe resolve legal issues, whatever, I don't know. But what I will say here tonight is that on a conscious or subconscious level, and you may not be realizing it or verbalize it, but what drives most people into recovery is a startling sense of being lost, leading to a longing to find themselves again. Now, I know that our traditions think that's all that's needed is a desire to stop drinking. But what comes after that? What's driving you now? I say that it is really a burning desire to retrieve that lost soul, to feel whole again, to reclaim, embrace, cherish, and protect everything they once held dear, everything they believed in, to once again define themselves through the practice of spiritual principles and productive character attributes, to salvage from the wreckage of the past honor, pride, duty, integrity, hope, and hopefully some inner peace. They return to the responsibility and accountability, putting them in a place through their actions where they can be trusted and respected, be respected again, as well as trust and respect yourself. This, I feel, is the compelling dynamic of recovery. To recover your true best self through the construction or reconstruction of a principal character, and therefore put yourself on the path to the realization of your personal destiny. To sum it up, sobriety is where you are, recovery is who you are. If you're paying $5 for a 12-ounce bottle of smart water, it ain't working. Balo. Now, what am I about to say next reflects my personal beliefs. This may go against the theories and philosophies of those far more learned than I am. I can't defend this with data, charts, or empirical evidence, but when you get to my age, you can say, do pretty much what you want to, and all they say, well, there goes Oren again, look at Oren, walking around barefoot in his underwear, bless his heart. But so I'm going to take advantage of my age, and so here we go. I believe that we were born enough. I believe that all the values, standards, and principles anyone would ever need to be an honorable, decent, caring, and spiritually fit individual, I believe we were born with. I think of this as our natural state. When we are there, this can create us an emotional comfort zone. I feel good, I'm feeling good, everything's good, I'm comfortable in my own skin, everything's okay. The reflection, our actions that we show reflect this balanced soul. Alcoholism and addiction turns all of that on its head. Very honest men and women enter the world of alcoholism and addiction, and they become deceivingly deceitful and devious. Very compassionate men or women find that through their alcoholism and addiction, they have become cold, callous, and sometimes cruel. Very understanding and forgiving men and women stumble into the world of alcoholism and addiction and bring suffering to themselves and others through damning judgments and hateful resentments. Now, this once thriving soul is now a crater abyss, and where virtue once flowed like a refreshing river and fed the spirit, now corruption dries it up and lays it barren. Nature abhors a vacuum. Consciously or not, we yearn to be whole again. Now, with brilliant insight, Carl Jung understands this, and he says that alcoholism is the perfect metaphor for man's thirst for completeness. We try to drink ourselves whole. So there must be a purge of these far and self-defeating character defects and a restoration of our innate character attributes or principles that take us back to our natural state. That's that sense of completeness that Dr. Jung is talking about. The founders of AA, the men who fashioned the philosophy of recovery, recognized all of this and cobbled together a course of action or prescription, if you will, for our disease in 12 modest but dazzling and ultimately life-changing sentences. And they did not call it the 12 steps for sobriety. Now pay attention. They call it recovery. And if your recovery doesn't lift you, if it doesn't grow you, if it doesn't heal you, if it doesn't move you towards the way you want to feel and the person you want to be, if it does not restore you and give you a sense of purpose and meaning, what good is it? Why are you even trying? What would you call it? Now, for any of this to happen, there have to be changes. In fact, recovery is defined as making changes, and if you're not making changes, you aren't in recovery. I'll never forget early in my journey towards my wholeness, at one of the first meetings I ever went to, I heard an old timer say, if the men and women in this room don't make changes, the men and women in this room will always drink and drug. Now that snapped me to attention, and it launched in me a heightened sense of awareness and insight. I learned that night that to get the life I wanted, I had to leave the life I had. And that's what I hope to do here tonight. To move your thinking into an awareness of the needed mindset to take on the journey of recovery. The quest or the discovery of and recovery of your true best self. A revealing and actualization of your personal destiny. Get in touch with your higher angels. Mark Twain said that the two most important days of a person's life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. The practice of the philosophy of the 12-step program was conceived to move you toward that reason why. William James, perhaps America's greatest philosopher, offers an endorsement for change when he suggests that human beings can alter the state of their lives by altering the state of their minds. Albert Einstein actually issues a directive for change when he states that you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. Or on a more earthy level, if you keep on doing what you always done, you'll always get what you always got. So you don't get confused, I'll tell you it again. If you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. Even I can figure that one out. This means that there has to be a change from addictive thinking to recovery thinking. A reboot, an adjustment, a wholesale across the board reframing of the mind. So how do you start that? Well, I think that the first change needed to get your motor started is the stance that you take. You must approach your journey with an attitude of victory rather than one of failure. I will tell you right now, do not doubt me. You can't take on this challenge with a defeated attitude. It can't be done. It won't happen. When you do your work, when you think like that, you're working for your disease. You got to think like a champion. How do they think? Now, you may not realize it, but everybody you like and admire for their accomplishments failed at something somewhere sometime on their way there. Everybody you ever looked at and said to yourself, man, I would like to be like him. I'd like to be like her. I'd like to have what they have, has known the bitter taste of defeat, every one of them. And these people felt that sting because they set themselves up for it. They put themselves in a position to fail. Now, you got to ask yourself, why would anybody do that? Because these people dared to be great, and in any quest for greatness, they knew that adversity and sometimes failure is always a part of the journey, always. But the fear of failure didn't slow them down because they also knew that nothing happens, not heartbreaking defeat or roaring success, until at first you believe yourself and then step out and take that chance. Some people set goals, very high goals for themselves. They want that trophy. They want that gold medal. They want that yearly medallion. They want that mountaintop. They want the soul-swelling self-satisfaction and success. But they also know that they have to be willing to hit the bottom, to taste the tears, to be broken and discouraged, because you see, it's all part of the ride. Did you ever stop to realize that poured into the mold of every championship trophy, along with the gold and the silver, are also tears and fears and disappointment? The people you admire knew that before they ever started, and they were prepared for it. They were primed for it because they knew that often before victory first comes harsh defeat, and that was okay because they were also determined going in that any setback was temporary, and in no way would it be high-ended. Only those who are not afraid to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. To them, failure isn't that big a deal, not a game changer. Rising back up is the only deal. It's the only thing that matters. So as they chased their own personal gold medal, what happened? Well, I'll tell you, they got their tails kicked in, that's what. They got knocked flat on their butts, but they got back up because they were on a mission, a cause they believed in, inspired them, forced them to endure and persevere for. Champions know that this failure thing is where they are, not who they are. They know that failure is an occurrence, it's not a person. They know that failure is actually an opportunity to learn, to grow. It isn't a setback, it's a setup for victory. They weren't interested in comfort, but instead welcomed the pain that comes with the intense effort, because they know that pain is actually gain. When victories were few and roadblocks plenty, they kept going, because to these people, every chance is a second chance. These are the people who, when they get knocked down 6 times, they get up 7. They aren't the ones without doubts and fears. They were unstoppable because they continued on despite them. People stay in a state of mediocrity because it's comfortable there. As you start the life-transforming journey of your recovery, this is how you must think. This is what you must believe. And if you want to do great things, prepare to be uncomfortable. The program of recovery is offered through the 12-step philosophy is not for little people, it's small minds. It was not written on that level. It can't be understood on that level. And most assuredly, it can't be practiced on that level. The bar is far too high for those with that mentality. It takes a champion mentality. And then we got to grow up. You know, it's funny, most of us in recovery didn't necessarily have bad childhoods, but we sure had long ones. And so you just got to grow up. The adult mindset. It all starts with the development of an adult mindset. Now, in the addicted mind, the first thought is usually a lie, or at best wrong. So we start to move towards adulthood by practicing honesty. You just stop lying. Since the principle of the first step is honesty, in fact, it's called the honesty step, it only makes sense that the dynamic that thrusts the recovering alcoholic and addict towards maturity is honesty. Fidelity to integrity and truthfulness can be a real problem with those with an adolescent mindset, as dishonesty is a way of thinking that runs off of the ego. Therefore, when something is genuinely wrong in the adolescent mind, driven by the ego, which always wants to be right, will deny, run from the problem, and take the position that if by some chance there is something wrong, it ain't my fault, so somebody else has got to fix it. There is a refusal of accountability. This childish emotional approach has an excuse for everything. Excuses and denials are byproducts of an adolescent way of thinking. The adult mindset rejects the ego, admits that yes, there is a very real special problem here, and even if I could make a case that it isn't my fault, I'm still responsible for taking care of it. This manner of thinking leads one to full accountability as a prominent attribute of the adult mindset. Now, accountability has a mother. There's something that gives birth to it, and I believe that that birth is spawned from an innate hunger in most humans to rise, to prosper, to be full grown. Nobody has to tell an infant to start walking. They do that on their own. It's a response to an instinctive inborn drive to rise. The torpedo of honesty sinks the ship of denial and puts the fledgling adult on the seas of maturity and gives them the opportunity to rise to that next level. Now, you may think denial is protecting you, but in reality, denial is your disease's best friend. Another feature of the adult mindset is gratitude. Gratitude is far from an emotion. It's an ongoing action from knowing that in some way, for whatever reason, we have been graced, that we have been blessed. Gratitude is the fixer. Bill Wilson says that resentments are the #1 offender to quality recovery. How do I know that? And through my professional experience and through my own life, I know all about the damage of resentments. I had resentments so hot they could melt down the barrel of a cannon. Rehab facilities are built because of the alcoholism addiction brought on by resentments. They are crippling and they'll suck the soul out of you. Day by day, maybe even hour by hour, feelings and expressions of gratitude defeat impulses toward resentments. When doubt, self-pity, bitterness, selfishness, and yes, resentments start to unravel your recovery, tearing it away at the seams, get some duct tape, slap a little gratitude on it. That'll fix it. The adult is humbled by gratitude. Most people who are recovering really can't explain how it happened, especially why it happened to them. They see recovery as a blessing, and the Irish say that a blessing can't be a blessing until it is shared. This attitude of humbleness and sharing, born of gratitude, keeps their recovery alive, fresh, and vibrant, and most importantly, available for others. And this is another key point. Know this. A sure sign of slipping into the relapse process is a loss of gratitude. We must constantly assess our levels of gratitude. Now, let me ask you to think about this. What if you woke up this morning and all you have is what you were thankful for last night? They say that if you only say one prayer in your entire life, thank you would be a pretty good one. Gratitude lifts you, and in turn, it boosts others. Father Martin says in his most special Father Martin way, gratitude is what makes little people big. The small person moans and groans about what they don't have. The adult silently whispers a prayer, thank you for what I do have. The adult mindset is also more discipline, not just discipline, but moral discipline. Discipline in the interest of morality. Discipline that will move you toward your rightness. The adolescent mindset recoils from discipline as if it were a flame. To them, discipline locks them down, restricts them. As children, they're told over and over again, no, you can't play in the street. No, you can't skip school. No, you can't put that fork in those two little holes in the socket. No, you can't eat ice cream for breakfast. They hate discipline. It ain't no fun. The adult mindset embraces discipline. The adult knows that the discipline is anything but restrictive. They understand that through discipline, they can climb to that next level so they so much long for, because discipline actually opens up avenues for growth. The philosophy of our program is fully aware the stunted growth caused from a lack of discipline, so it's instituted a program that insists on it. Discipline is the principle rooted in the ninth step. It takes discipline to not only make our amends, but in a way that heals and not harms. Our directed progress, not perfection, is an exercise in patience acquired from discipline. The child wants that instant gratification. I want it now, in that color, and at that size. This reckless and very dangerous impulsivity is controlled through the adult mindset by taking on life one day at a time. Yesterday and tomorrow are weapons, our disease we use against us. Why? Because we have no power there. That's where it wants us. Through discipline, staying in the now is a must. Prayer is a discipline. To the novice, prayer can be tricky. I had to teach myself to pray. I would forget, it wasn't natural to me, and I wanted it to be. So I disciplined myself to put my car keys under my bed at night. So in the morning, I'd have to get on my knees to retrieve them. And since I was already down there, don't laugh, it worked. The incessant battle of wants versus needs must be mastered. If the recovering alcoholic starts acting on what they want as opposed to what they need, that person is on a slippery slope sliding to a relapse. The child cries, but I want to. The adult replies, but yes, do I need to? The correction, of course, is only possible through discipline. Can you recognize and appreciate the discipline needed to every night and every morning engage in the perseverance and awareness of our 10th and 11th steps? Not only do these steps, but employ the rigorous honesty to make them effective. Adjusting your old world into a new one that involves meetings, meditations, daily inventories, your home group, proper exercise and nutrition, sponsorship and service, all takes discipline. This can truly be a confrontation of needs versus want. Just remember the old AA riddle. What's the most important meeting that you'll ever go to? The one you don't want to go to. Now let me illustrate the value and need of discipline and by going to a medical model. Alcoholism and addiction is a medical condition. It's a mental disorder. It's right there in the same book with all the rest of it. There are very effective medications for diseases and disorders, but therein often lies a catch. A lot of patients take their meds, they start feeling better, they figure that they're cured, and then they stop taking the meds. That never works, because once you stop taking your meds, the disorder is coming right back, sometimes worse than it was before. Now, I want everybody in recovery, especially newcomers, to hear me, because this is important. The 12 steps, as they are written, are our prescriptions for our disease, and the embedded principles in each one are the medications. So, when we lose our discipline and ignore our prescriptions or ignore the steps in the program and stop taking our meds, which means we stop acting in the principled manner, just like all of the other mental disorders, our disease is going to come roaring back, and it ain't going to be pretty, and you ain't going to like it. In almost every relapse story I've ever heard, somewhere, sometime in there, that person will say, I stopped going to meetings. You know what that person just told me? I stopped taking my meds. And if you want to doubt me on that one, there are people in this room tonight who have suffered from that lack of discipline, and thankfully they have survived to tell the tale. You can ask them. Tragically, there are those who did the same thing and they're not here, and you'll never be able to ask them. In our program, we have a motto, a code we live by: do the next right thing, every time, without hesitation. On the playing fields, it is inconsistency and hesitation that turns a superior athlete into an average one, and then games get lost. In the fields of battle, hesitation is what turns an exceptionally well-trained soldier into a casualty. And in recovery, hesitation and inconsistency to practice this program exactly as it is written is what turns a glorious and admirable recovery into a sad and regrettable relapse. Discipline is when your conscience tells you what to do and you don't talk back. So if moral discipline is the dynamic thrusting us towards maturity, where does that come from? Well, actually it comes from moral courage. Again, not just courage, but moral courage. Courage that moves us toward our morality. Now, did you know that the term courage is used 18 times in the big book in the 12 and 12? For those of you who don't know, that's two of our basic texts. It's even referenced in the Serenity Prayer. To understand why, you must know that there is a specific distinction between courage and bravery. And it works like this. The brave take on the dragon when the dragon shows up. The courageous go find their dragons and slay them so they don't come back. The 12-step philosophy mandates that through thorough and honest introspection, we are to go find our dragons, flush them out, develop the willingness to eliminate them, or at least manage them, instead of them managing us. The determination and commitment to heal by attacking personal demons is propelled by moral courage. And in the quest to conquer one's own devils, there isn't an absence of fear. This introspective journey to the belly of the beast can be terrifying. But courage happens when you push through the fears. The little boy asked his father, "How can you have courage and be scared too?" And his father looked at him and said, "How can you have courage if you're not scared?" Now, for an act to be morally courageous, it must have noble ends. I'll go over that. Obviously, would represent the morality of you, and it must be in the defense of values and standards. So I think of courage as a preservative. It's what we use to protect values and standards, our principles, the code, the belief system we should all have and work under. Now, what could be a more courageous act, spawn of desperation and pain, than to crawl into the rooms of AA and NA for the first time and plead to a room full of total strangers, "This thing has beat me to my knees, and I can't stop, and I hear that you know how. Will you please help me?" Our program states that we must make amends for our hurtful behaviors. What could represent courage more than to walk up to someone you have harmed because of an adolescent mindset, and with a now more mature one, powered by humbleness, honesty, willingness, and a sense of justice, say, "I was wrong. I deeply regret my actions. For that, I apologize." We are mandated in our program to not only make a moral inventory of all of our wrongs, but confess them to someone that we trust. That requires honesty and moral courage. Now, these acts of moral courage and many others are the only way to put oneself in an arena where the phenomenal transformative powers of the program can take place. And hear me now, again, do not doubt me. This program of practice, as written, should redirect the entire course of your life. Isn't that what you want? I don't know of anyone that has entered the rooms of AA or went to rehab anywhere because they were on a winning streak. And nobody flies into rehab on the wings of victory. Now, admittedly, here's where the notion of moral courage can get a little stern, uncomfortable, and demanding. The aspiring champion in his or her pursuit of victory does not take into account the amount of fear involved, the unpleasantness of the pain, or the hardships involved with it. That way of thinking will cause hesitation, and we've already found out what happens there. Rather, the moral courage in our program asks that you step out into the battlefield of your disease and take on whatever needs to be taken on, knowing this at all times, and listen up because this is very important, you are not alone. There will never be anything you are asked to do in your journey of recovery that you will be asked to do alone. It truly is a we thing. The very first word in the very first step is we. There are higher powers that will help you. You just have to have the courage to ask them. An alcoholic or an addict by themselves is outnumbered. So if the transformation of one's life necessitates moral courage, how does one acquire it in the first place? Well, Aristotle, in his essays on moral courage, says that it is achieved in two basic ways. I'll explain them, and then I'll relate them to our recovery program. First, it must be taught. Now, this would come from the child's elders. Their stories, fables, and myths speak of the magnificent exploits of the men and women who performed heroic deeds exhibiting moral courage all along the way. The child is told the legend of the undefeatable and inexhaustible spirit of Ulysses, or the unflinching integrity of George Washington. They and others become giants in their eyes, and the young one says, "Man, when I grow up, I want to be just like that. I want what they have. I want to do what they do." Secondly, moral courage has to be modeled. Children see the courage, the rightness, the integrity of their seniors, and they're drawn to it. They, in turn, seek to emulate those behaviors and follow in their footsteps. One time, I was told by a child psychiatrist one time that children will do very little of what we tell them to do, but they'll do everything they see us do. Consistent demonstrations of moral courage from our seniors is an obligation, a must, if it is to pass down to future generations. Now, through repeated imitations of the courage they have seen and have been taught, the attribute of courage is habituated. In other words, it becomes a habit. That way, the child escalates to an adult where courage becomes a natural course of action. In other words, they one day stop practicing courage, they are courageous. It's no different in our recovery. Who teaches us? The men and women in the rooms of AA and NA. They serve as role models. They look at the newcomer and they say, if you want what we have, if you want to be who we are, just follow our footsteps. Here are some suggestions. Do what we do. By attending meetings, we see and hear for an hour of the splendid triumphs of not gallant knights in shining armor or majestic mythical warriors with spears and shields, but of the everyday inspiring victories of the remarkable normal people who walk among us all day. Vicariously, we live their successes over alcoholism, and we strive for our own. We are encouraged, we're given hope, and we say to ourselves, well, if they can do it, why not me? But those of us with some time in the rooms, we share a duty. We should live, breathe, speak of, and model a recovery that is attractive to others. Now, my first sponsor, a role model, an elder, taught me that in every meeting I go to, there might be a newcomer, and that person is watching. And through my actions, my attitude, my gratitude, how I carry myself, I may be the only big book they ever read. It is said that the world cares nothing of what your faith is. It is only concerned with what it is your faith makes you do. Same thing with our recovery. The newcomer only wants to know how this thing called recovery will change him, how it will fix him, how it will make him be, what it will make him do. We have to show them. Aristotle goes on to say that for an act to be a morally courageous one, it must have a noble end. Well, what are the noble ends in our program? In our literature, they're called the promises. If you're not familiar with them, open the book, I'll help you, page 83, and read them, study them, desire them. If you are a counselor or if you're sponsoring someone, introduce them and discuss them, and don't hesitate to do it now. The newcomer must know about the promises. They offer serenity, peace, a renewed spirit, wisdom, hope, the ability and the willingness to help others, and as a result, get a reward for your pain. They speak of integrity, confidence, purpose, and meaning, and above all, freedom. It is promised. Now, let me talk a little bit more about freedom. In the history of this planet, there has never been a more noble, honorable, and just cause that men and women have risen and fought for than the pursuit of their personal freedom. And you hear me now? Write this down and never forget it. Alcoholism and addiction is slavery. Recovery is freedom. In the final analysis, all recovery is a fight for freedom. You were born free. In our 11th step, through prayer and meditation, we are to seek the knowledge of God's will for us. Now, I can't speak for God, but I have no doubt that a huge part of His plan for us is to be free. That's how we were born. I just believe that. Freedom of head, heart, and mind. Freedom of choices. Free to feel the way we want to feel. Freedom from the torturous obsession for the drugs. Freedom from the everyday selling out of morals, values, ethics, and standards. Freedom to search out and find one's own personal destiny. Freedom to sing your own song and write your own story. Know that. Feel it. Embrace it. Live it. Lift the cause of your recovery to that high, a noble and honorable level, and then you fight your battle there. Now, I'm going to elaborate on that point just a little bit further, and I beg you to pay close attention because you need to understand the true message behind an urge or a craving. I'm going to tell you what it is. What I say next will expose the cunning, baffling, and powerful evilness of our disease and how it will try to rob you of your precious freedoms. It will try to trick you into thinking that the end result of using is some kind of relief, an escape from reality, or that more fun will come your way. That is an illusion. That is a trick. Don't take the bait. Many before you have relapsed, very few, if any, found it to be fun. Know what your disease is really trying to manipulate you to do, and what you have to do, and the point here is, your disease cannot make you do anything. You have to do this, and it's going to manipulate you, and how it will make you do that is that before you take the next drink of drug, you have to demean and invalidate yourself. You have to willingly willingly invite possible disgraceful behavior once again. You have to put your love for your family and friends away for the fix of the drug. You have to prostitute your values, desert standards, abandon all goals, disregard honor, and once again, voluntarily be less than who you can be and return to slavery. You have to quit, you have to give in, you have to sell out, or you can fight. You can fight for your freedoms. And this is how I tell my patients to fight. I tell my patients, I want you to fight like you're the third monkey on the ramp of Noah's Ark and it's starting to rain. Lastly, the adult mind is a service mind. The gift of recovery has been freely given to us, so to keep it, we give it back. Recovery is a river, it's not a reservoir. The waters in a river flow freshly, feeding the entire system. Water in a reservoir sits still, becoming stale and stagnant, feeds nothing. Thus, the forceful and nourishing current of the rivers of our recovery empower us to carry the message. One of the legs of our AA triangle is service. The very principle of the 12th step is service. Our third step prayer begs for the release from the bondage of ourselves. Why? So we can better serve. The essence of our primary purpose is to help others get what we have. That's service. William James says that self-serving is fatal to the growth of spirituality. Only through service for others can one realize true worth. He is saying that service is reciprocal. I help you, and in return I heal, I grow, I feel fulfillment, I find purpose, my recovery thrives and stays intact, and you benefit. Dr. Martin Luther King advances the call for service when he says, "It is the most urgent of all questions. What am I doing for others?" This from a man who died answering that question. After so many years of infantile self-absorption, greed, and the constant take it, and the thinking, what's in it for me, it ended up lifting to finally grow up and say, how can I help you? A simple gift of charity, not money, but of spirit, an expression of sympathy, empathy, a sincere and grateful thank you, a show of kindness. You have no idea how renovating and enriching this can be to others, and look what it says about you. I'll say this. Everyone you know is fighting some battle you don't know anything about. Always be kind. Acts of kindness are the jewels in the crowns of service. Finally, allow me to borrow from history and lean on the astute wisdom and perceptiveness of an old visionary. Around 2,000 years ago, the Apostle Paul wrote some letters to the citizens of a town called Oren. In one of those letters to the Corinthians, he described in an unparalleled way the true essence of love. Love is kind. If you've ever been to a wedding, you've heard it. I think it's been in about 4 of mine. I can't keep up. Anyway, at the end of that letter, after he had illuminated the glowing nature of love, he got a little testy with them. Sternly, perhaps even lovingly, he berated them for their reluctance to act on what he had tasked them to do, and that was basically to grow up. His advice is pristine in its prose, sparkling in its simplicity, and rich in its rewards. For their benefit as well as the millions of us that came after them, he cautioned. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child and reasoned like a child. But when I was called on to be a man to do great things, I had to put those childish ways away. The Apostle Paul wrote that letter to every man or woman who ever dared to take on the journey of recovery. That missionary's challenge and reproach stirred so many to rise and serve, and when they did, they forever changed the course of mankind. It's the same with our program. The 12-step philosophy is one of victory, honesty, gratitude, moral discipline, and courage, and then we serve. Now, in doing so, like Paul and his followers, you may not change the world, or maybe you just might. Who knows who God's going to pick next? From the deepest, most genuine, and sincere part of me that is possible, with the highest measure of love and appreciation that I know how to reach, I thank you.